Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Results Matter Administrative Series Spring Checkpoint Activities. My name is Kayla Parr, and I am in the Office of Special Education here at the Nebraska Department of Education. And today we are here to walk through a series of helpful resources and hints to support you in these next few months in regards to Teaching Strategies Gold. This first portion of our webinar will be content through a PowerPoint and a demonstration account. If you have questions that come up as we are speaking, please enter them into the chat box, and we'll be sure to use the last half an hour of our presentation to answer any questions that you have. I'm here with Alyssa Anson, who's going to get us started for this morning.
Hi everyone, this is Alyssa Anson, and I work in the Office of Early Childhood here at the Department of Education. And to get us started here, we will begin by looking at the spring checkpoint period. What we have created here on this slide is sort of a chart to give you a vision of how you break that checkpoint period up into a formative and summative portion of the assessment process. It goes through what teachers' responsibility is during that 12-week checkpoint period and how you as an administrator can monitor and check the process through the checkpoint period so that you're able to offer the necessary supports and resources to ensure that the data is accurate and finalized. If you look at the very beginning here of the documentation window for teachers, this is the formative portion of the assessment process used to collect the evidence and input the documentation so that teachers have the information they need at the end of the checkpoint period to accurately determine a child's developmental level. So in relation to the spring checkpoint, we did put a time frame there starting right after the winter checkpoint, February 16th, and ending in the middle of May. We have a guidance that it's about 10 weeks of the checkpoint period for formative, which then leaves 2 weeks at the end to use that evidence to make an informed decision, also known as that checkpoint level. So going into the summative portion of assessment, teachers have taken those first 10 weeks to really observe, document, collect evidence, and input it into those child's profiles for reference as they now reach the summative portion, which is a 2-week section of time where they use that evidence that was collected and input to now determine the finalized checkpoint level or the developmental level of each of their children. We gave a time frame of May 16th through May 31st. The checkpoint for spring does end on May 31st. Those timeframes may be adjusted depending on when school closes for the year. So those timeframes are definitely just guidance and can be adjusted according to your school schedule. And at the very end here of the chart, you'll see how that formative and summative sections break up as far as how they relate to you as an administrator. During that formative section of time, those first 10 weeks of documentation, there is a report that can be utilized, the documentation status report, and we'll get into that next, to really look at and ensure that evidence is being collected and input that shows the children's skills and abilities. And then there's also a report for that summative section, the assessment status report, so you can monitor and make sure that teachers are going ahead and taking that time to finalize that data. The reason we want to encourage you as an administrator to go in and use the reports to monitor documentation and checkpoints is to make sure, one, that from a compliance standpoint, the documentation and the evidence is getting finalized. We definitely need that data to make informed decisions. It also makes sure that the data is quality, it's accurate, and is being used to fidelity. But another reason why you want to make sure that you are monitoring documentation is because it can really inform you from an administrative standpoint if your teachers have all the resources they need to be successful when executing the large tool of GOLD. So if you notice that it is not being done in a timely manner or there's big gaps, it can spark you to have a conversation with that teacher or that building as a whole to make sure they have enough time necessary to complete the assessment or if they need additional professional development. This first report is used for the formative section, which is reviewing the frequency of teachers inputting their documentation. And that report is the documentation status report. This report lives in the report tab, and it is titled Documentation Status Report. You can filter it by individual teachers. If you want to check one teacher at a time, you can also do it from a site or program level, depending on what you want to monitor. But the information provided here is going to show you each individual objective and how much evidence they have collected and input into each child's profile. And then when getting to the summative portion, or those last 2 weeks of the checkpoint period, there is a report titled the Assessment Status Report that can help you in monitoring teacher progress. In order to run the Assessment Status Report, that as well is in the Report tab. And so you'll want to really pay attention here to step 2 and step 3. Step 1 is showing the OSEP status, but when you go into the Report tab, you'll actually want to look for the report titled Assessment Status Report. You can then filter down by classroom and teacher as needed to see how many of the actual areas are being completed and finalized.
All right, so we're going to shift gears just a little bit. As Alyssa walked you through 2 essential reports for administrators, but also for teachers. Those are both reports teachers can run on a daily basis to monitor their own progress. But as an administrator, there's some things that you would want to kind of keep an eye for as you are observing and monitoring the data being entered. So the first one, as a precaution, is to make sure teachers do not mark not observed. Not observed is an option along the continuum. So as a teacher goes in to enter a piece of documentation, they're then asked to set what's called a preliminary level. On that preliminary level scale, the color band rating that you're seeing, there is an option for not observed, and you'll also see an option for not yet. I say to stop there and make sure that all teachers do not use not observed, as especially in the world of special education, when you're trying to exit a child, the data will pull insufficient, even if you use it for one piece of documentation, one piece of or one objective. So to sum it up, make sure that your teachers are not using not observed. Based on conversations we've had in trainings, I don't believe that a lot of teachers are using it. So this is, again, just a reminder and a precaution to put in place when you are doing your monitoring. The next piece is around not yet. So like I said earlier, there's a progression of color bands, and if a child is not yet able or not yet showing that they are falling along that continuum for a specific objective, a teacher may mark not yet, which is absolutely okay in many cases. It's a precaution, as if they mark it for 90% of the objectives for one given child, the tool, GOLD, may pull insufficient data. Another thing to note with not yet, especially as the tool is expanded through 3rd grade, you're going to see that there are more objectives, especially for your birth to age 3 kiddos, that you would mark not yet for an objective. And again, I want to make sure that you know that that's okay. We just want to make sure it's not across the board, because you do not need to enter evidence if you mark not yet. So again, just some precautionary notes. If you want to make sure that you're able to use the tool for how it's intended to be used, and that's for showing student progress and driving your instruction. So this next section is going to walk you through how to, again, at a deeper level, monitor what the teachers are entering in forms of documentation or in forms of their evidence for each child. This is not necessarily a lens that you would have from an administrative access. So again, many of you have administrative access within your accounts. The only way for you to observe or assess the evidence that's the teachers are entering into the child's profile is to emulate that teacher and go into their Assess tab. If you're unsure how to emulate a teacher, you can go to the support portal, where we'll talk to you a little bit about at the very end of today's session, and ask the support portal, how do I emulate a teacher? And it will give you step-by-steps on how to do so. But essentially, what you would do is you would click on the Assess tab within the teacher's profile, and then view documentation. I'm going to go ahead and just walk you through what this would look like in regards to the platform before we move on. So again, here I am in our demonstration account. You would go under the Assess tab. And then here at the top, we're going to reference this grayed out area for the next few slides. So I'll bring your attention to view documentation. And from there, you can select which checkpoint period it is that you are wanting to observe the evidence that has been entered. This again can be utilized to ensure that the evidence is of quality, that a piece of evidence doesn't have every child in the classroom listed to that piece of documentation. There's just, again, some look-fors. Or today we read a story during whole group, was the evidence that was entered or the anecdotal note, and then preliminary levels were set for each individual child. That may show as a red flag to you as an administrator and prompt you to have a conversation with that teacher in regards to the fidelity of the data being entered. So again, you can change the checkpoint period. For our purposes, this is a demonstration account, so I'm going to show what it would look like to filter down for fall of 2019-2020. And this is what you would see. Hopefully you would see a lot more, as this is just pieces of evidence being entered for one individual child, as this is a demonstration account. What's really unique about this tool too is it will tell you whether they have set a preliminary level or not. So as you can see with this piece of documentation, the teacher did not set a preliminary level for what they had entered. And that's because you're not seeing this color band here. But you can also click on the evidence, and if it's an anecdotal note, it will tell you what the teacher observed. If it's an image or a photo that they have uploaded, that would also show within this view of documentation. What you're seeing here doesn't have that information attached to it. It shows that the teacher selected a date that it was observed, which objectives she observed for, and she scored Bella at a rating of a 4 and a 3. So again, you would want to see a little bit more information here to support why did she score Bella at a 4 or a 3 for that objective. So again, this is just a deeper level of understanding and looking into where some professional development could come from for teachers if their anecdotal notes aren't necessarily ringing true to what the teacher is seeing within the classroom. So the next thing that I'm going to bring you to is another useful tool for teachers. One of the biggest concerns teachers have in regards to Teaching Strategies Gold and this assessment tool is that it's very timely, and we understand that. But there's also resources within the platform that will support teachers in this data collection process. And so again, this is something you can bring to your teachers as a helpful tool in ensuring that it's collected in a timely manner. So what I'm going to bring you to is, again, under this Assess tab for teachers, and then you would go to On the Spot. On the Spot is a tool for the domains of physical, math, and literacy. Physical, math, and literacy objectives do not require anecdotal notes, a photo. It doesn't require that piece of evidence to support why you scored them the way that you had. So On the Spot requires a date that you observed the child doing, demonstrating that objective, and then you upload it into the system. So again, you'll see On the Spot here, and then you can print based on an individual child or a whole class, depending on what you would like to, what lens you would like to view from. You're also able to, again, select which objectives you want to be able to look at a given time. So for today's sake, I'm going to keep all physical objectives, literacy and math, selected, and I'm going to go ahead and click Next. What you see here is, again, that resource I was telling you for teachers is it gives you each of the objectives under physical, it gives you the continuum, and then all of the kids within that class. So all that teacher would need to do is carry a clipboard around with them to then mark what date they observed Bella doing said task and where she fell along this continuum. This is a printable resource, as you can see here, that again you can utilize, carry around with you throughout your daily interactions, as again this is an ongoing data collection process. So I'm going to bring us back to our PowerPoint, and I've showed you how to view documentation within a teacher's profile. Again, remember you would need to emulate that teacher, and you can find steps on how to do so within the support portal. We've walked through the On the Spot documentation resource and how you're able to filter and print as, again, a helpful resource for a teacher.
So as teachers collect evidence and start to finalize that data, the report tab within their accounts and yours as an administrator will start to generate a collection of data so that that information can be used to communicate for a variety of audience. There are a large number of reports within that report tab, so it's important to really familiarize yourself with each of those reports so you can better determine what audience they suit best for. For this next section, I have identified a few reports, 2 within the report tab and 1 within the family tab, that can be utilized when teachers are wanting to report that progress for home visits and also parent-teacher conferences, as we are in the time of year here in February. And keep in mind that an advantage of using a report generated from My Teaching Strategies Gold is that Gold always reports child progress from a strength-based perspective. So you're never having to have the conversation with parents about what the child is lacking or what they're not yet doing. It'll always communicate that progress as where they currently are and where the next step in that developmental progression is. So this first report is the individual child report. The reason I bring this report to light here for this webinar is that I know a lot of schools utilize this report in communicating progress to parents. I do caution against utilizing this report when having conversations with family, and the fact that it does require a lot of background knowledge in understanding what a developmental progression means, and oftentimes can leave families with a bit more questions than it does actually communicating their progress. One advantage to this report is that it will show a comparison of different checkpoint periods. So you can run it for a variety of checkpoint dates so that it will show where they began and where they currently are. But when you get especially below that color band, it can elicit a lot of different feelings for families and may again require some more explaining. So I would encourage the individual child report to be used from a teaching team or an administrative level, and you utilize that report to individualize instruction from a teacher level for that particular child, and also to inform IFSP or IEP meetings. And this report also is generated within the report tab. The next report within your report tab is the development and learning report. This is a very comprehensive report that you are able to select which objectives you want to include within that report or what areas. So you can filter it down to one specific, such as just reporting on social emotional, or include all the areas as well. But what's nice about this report is it very clearly shows each area as far as social emotional, physical, language, and so forth. And it'll lay out what the child is currently doing, keeping in mind that this language is pulled directly from the indicator language. So there is no way to edit or adjust that wording. It will then move into the plan or what the child will do next. So this clearly communicates with families where their child is currently performing and what the plan moving forward will be to move them along that progression. The final report I want to show you does live in the family tab. And this family conference form, the advantage of this form is it does allow more customization. You are actually able to take the language that it automatically generates. You can delete it, edit it, and alter it as much as needed. The other advantage here is you can actually print off a blank family conference form. So when thinking about going into a home visit, it really allows you and the family to discuss where the child is currently at and create a plan moving forward directly with the teacher and the family. So in the demo account here, I'll show you where you can find that family conference form, as it does exist in the family tab. So as you click on the family tab, in that top gray bar, the family conference form, this is where you're able to select the checkpoint period, the child, and be able to generate the beginning of that report. if you make the decision that you wanted to take a blank form along with you to a home visit, you'll want to go down into the support portal at the bottom. And there you have the blank family conference form. If you'll notice, this does group some of the areas together. So you'll be describing social, emotional, physical, language, cognitive together, and the additional areas are also grouped together. And next we'll go into where within the Gold account you can access some resources.
All right, so what you're seeing here is some helpful resources that are hyperlinked to this PowerPoint that can better support you in your understanding of Gold, as well as your staff in their understanding of Gold, but more so the how-tos behind Gold. So there's two sides to teaching strategies Gold, and that's the implementation piece of how do you have the ongoing data collection system set up, what does that look like, how do you use reports for planning, but then you also have the technical assistance side, which we're trying to cover a little bit of both here, and that is your how-tos of create a classroom, archive a child, emulate a teacher, things like that. So what you're going to see here on the top link is the Nebraska Learning Pathways. This is focused around our professional development that is available in person. We just finished our series of Gold trainings this school year here in February, and are working to schedule out new dates and locations for next year. These trainings have been revised from the last few years. This last school year, the 1920 school year, was the first school year that we had updated content that we felt really supported teachers across settings, across age groups, as well as developed an administrative training and understanding the reports and how to support their teachers. So if you're interested in learning some more information, please refer to the Learning Pathways that's linked here. Also, you'll find checklists for beginning administrators as well as returning administrators. And these are very useful resources when you're thinking of your technical assistance, making sure that your Teaching Strategies Gold license is set up accurately and that you're keeping up with it. So as staff leaves or retires, that you're able to disable their account and create new ones for new team members, etc. The nice thing about these checklists is that when you go into them, here's what it looks like, and I apologize for the coloring. It's kind of hard to see. But it gives you step-by-step of, if I am a new Gold administrator, where do I begin? It's a daunting task if you're just handed over. You're going to be the Gold administrator, and if you want support in your understanding of what that means and what you're required to do, and then also how to do it, this is a very useful resource. What's nice, if you are looking at, let's say you're looking at step 4, create and add additional users, and you want to create a teacher account for each teacher in your program, you can click on this, and it's going to take you straight to the support portal and walk you through with visuals and language step by step how to complete that task. So again, if you're struggling with the technical side or the logistical side of setting things up and ensuring that it's set up accurately, these are helpful resources for you. Based on where we're at in the school year, I would recommend the user guide for administrators. This one is much more in depth in regards to what needs to be done at every single checkpoint throughout the school year, where the checklists for beginning administrators and returning administrators really focus on what needs to be completed at the beginning or at the end of each school year. As I said earlier, we talked about the support portal, and I showed you a few resources that took us to the support portal, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a couple minutes to just show you where it's located and how to utilize it. So we showed you on the family tab how it's a green circle in the left-hand corner with a question mark, and it says in orange, My Teaching Strategies Support Portal. You can go ahead and click on that, and it's gonna bring you to the same page every time. You're able to ask any question that you have, how to create a teacher account, how to emulate a teacher, any question that you have, and it will then, just like Google, populate resources that might connect to what you're asking. Also within this tab or within this site, you'll see that there is resources for teachers. There's also resources for administrators, and you can filter by topic, or you can also see, most frequently used or asked questions will be pulled up in this section here. Also wanted to bring your attention to the webinar section. This will always be updated as NDE creates webinars. Teaching Strategies Gold also creates webinars that will support users in their understanding or further learning of the tools, and it's always relevant to where we're at. So again, we just finished out the winter checkpoint period, so here you're going to see a gold webinar for winter checkpoint support for administrators, but they also record and archive down below any further webinars that you might find helpful for you or your teaching teams. Another thing that I'd like to point out is the support portal will be located under every tab at the top that you see. So you'll find it under the Teach tab, Assess tab, Development, Report, and Family. And it's going to look the same other than the fact that the color of the circle changes. But I want you to take note as I click on this circle, the resources listed below will match whatever tab that you're in. So I'm in the Reports tab, and it's giving me resources for teachers on how to run specific reports, and same for administrators. But the support portal will remain the same. When you're under the Assess tab, you'll see the resources change, but the support portal will remain the same. All right, so with all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and conclude our side of the webinar with our technical assistance workflow. This is designed to ensure that your needs are met in a timely manner. So if you are having a technical assistance issue or need further assistance, we would like you to refer to this slide and walk through the 3 steps that are provided here to again get you a response in a timely manner. So this next portion of our webinar, we're going to turn over to you all who have joined us today and ask if you have any questions based on the content that was provided. If you do, please go ahead and type your question in the chat box, and Alyssa and I will do our best to answer any questions that you have. So we're going to give a little wait time and see what we come up with. Another ask would be if there is specific content that you're looking for as an administrator that you would like built into our future webinars, as we'll have another one in March, April, and May. We would love your ideas. Those are also things that you could go ahead and type into the chat box. All right, so it's looking like there's no questions, so that's good, meaning hopefully we answered them as we talked through each of the items we shared with you today. We'd like to thank you for your time, taking it out of your Friday, and would like to invite you to our next webinar that will be on March 20th at 11 o'clock Central Time. If you'd like to be able to review today's webinar at a later time, it has been recorded and will be posted on the NDE Early Childhood YouTube channel. You'll be receiving an email, a follow-up email with a link available for you to again review it again or share with someone you feel may benefit from today's webinar. Again, we thank you for your time and hope you have a great weekend.